They weren't afraid of tanks or bombs, but when they heard Marines, even the most loyal Japanese soldiers hesitated. This is the untold story of why the U.S. Marines became the most feared enemy in the Pacific War. The Island of Death, Guadalcanal, 1942. August 21st, 1942. Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands. The jungle breathes like a living creature, thick, wet, and suffocating. Cicadas scream. The air reeks of rot and cordite. Private First Class John Red McAllister crouches behind a fallen coconut tree, his M1 Garand pressed to his chest. Sweat stings his eyes. Ahead, through the wall of green, comes a low whisper, then the metallic click of a Japanese Arisaka rifle bolt. He exhales slowly. The night is alive with fear. When the Marines landed on Guadalcanal just 2 weeks earlier, they expected a short campaign, a foothold in the Solomon Islands, to cut Japan's expansion southward. But what they found was hell itself, a relentless enemy who attacked from the shadows and refused to die quietly. At first, the Japanese soldiers underestimated the Americans. The Imperial Army had swept across Asia with near-mythic success. They'd crushed British forces in Malaya, humiliated the Dutch in the East Indies, and routed U.S. troops from the Philippines. But on Guadalcanal, they faced something different. The men in green were not the same kind of soldier they had seen before. They were Marines. From the first night attacks on the Tanaru River, the Japanese learned the hard way what that meant. As hundreds of Japanese troops charged the Marine lines in screaming banzai assaults, machine guns opened up the rhythmic, tearing roar of Browning M1917s, echoing through the palms. The air filled with the hiss of tracer rounds and the stench of gunpowder. When dawn came, the river ran red. Hundreds of Japanese bodies lay sprawled across the sand. Their commanders, expecting to find terrified Americans retreating, instead found calm, disciplined Marines cleaning their weapons, rebuilding defenses, ready for the next wave. Word spread quickly through the ranks of the Imperial Japanese Army. The Marines don't break. Japanese officers began writing home, describing the enemy as devils in green. Survivors spoke of Marines who fought even after being wounded, who advanced under mortar fire, bayonets fixed, without hesitation. One Japanese lieutenant, captured months later, admitted, "We thought the Americans were soft, but the Marines, they fight like wolves. When one falls, 2 more come forward." As the campaign dragged on, the jungle became a graveyard. Dysentery, starvation, and exhaustion claimed more lives than bullets. Yet the Marines kept moving, digging in by day, counterattacking by night. Japanese soldiers began to dread the sight of the Marine insignia. The eagle, globe, and anchor symbols whispered about in foxholes as omens of death. And it wasn't just their courage, it was their discipline. The Marines never stopped coming. Even when outnumbered, they coordinated artillery, air support, and naval bombardments with terrifying precision. Guadalcanal became the first time Japan realized that the war in the Pacific would not be won by spirit alone. For the first time, the myth of Japanese invincibility cracked, shattered by the unyielding resolve of the U.S. Marine Corps. When the campaign finally ended in early 1943, Japan had lost over 25,000 men. The Marines had carved their legend into the very soil of the island. And in Tokyo, High Command took note. These weren't ordinary soldiers. The American Marines were something else entirely, a force to be feared. But the worst was yet to come. The unbreakable wall, Tarawa to Iwo Jima, 1943, 1945, November 20th, 1943, Tarawa Atoll, Gilbert Islands. The sky burns orange with dawn as the first wave of landing craft crawls toward the coral reef. Inside one of them, Sergeant Louis Lou Ramirez grips his Thompson submachine gun. The surf slaps against the hull. Beside him, a Marine vomits over the side nerves, seawater, and fear, all mixing in the tropical heat. Ahead lies Betio Island, a speck of sand bristling with Japanese fortifications, pillboxes, bunkers, and concealed artillery. 2 days earlier, Japanese commander Keiji Shibazaki had boasted, "1,000,000 men cannot take Tarawa in 100 years." He would be proven wrong in 76 hours. As the Marines hit the reef, many of the landing craft stall in the shallows. Men jump into neck-deep water, wading hundreds of yards under machine gun fire. The air becomes a storm of metal bullets, cutting the surf into white foam, artillery shells pounding the beach. Those who reach the shore find themselves pinned down by overlapping fields of fire. There is no cover, only corpses and sand churned to mud by blood and explosions. But the Marines keep advancing, inch by inch, hour by hour. By the second day, the Japanese defenders realize something horrifying: the Americans will not stop. Even under impossible odds, they push forward, throwing grenades into bunkers, calling in naval bombardments, and clearing trenches with flamethrowers. When the smoke clears, Tarawa is nothing but scorched coral and silence. Nearly every Japanese soldier on the island is dead. Out of 4,800 defenders, only 17 survive. The survivors of the Imperial Army send reports back to Tokyo, not of victory, but of annihilation. They describe Marines who fight like machines, whose courage borders on madness. One diary entry, recovered later from a fallen Japanese officer, reads, "These men do not fear death. They come forward as if born from the smoke itself." This image of the Marines as relentless, almost supernatural warriors spreads through every Japanese garrison across the Pacific. From Tarawa to Saipan, from Peleliu to Iwo Jima, the pattern repeats. Each island becomes a microcosm of hell. At Saipan in 1944, entire Japanese units launch suicidal night attacks, screaming "Tenno Heika Banzai," only to be cut down by Marine gunfire. In one horrifying assault, over 3,000 Japanese soldiers charge against fortified Marine lines. By morning, the bodies lie stacked 3 deep. At Peleliu, the Marines face one of the most brutal defenses of the war: caves, tunnels, and heat, reaching 115 degrees. Even as men collapse from dehydration, the Marines move forward, one ridge at a time. The Japanese soldiers, trapped and surrounded, write that fighting the Marines feels like fighting ghosts who do not die. By 1945, on Iwo Jima, that legend becomes terrifying reality. The Japanese defenders, under General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, know what's coming. They've studied the Marines, their tactics, their psychology. Kuribayashi tells his men, "The Americans will not break. The Marines are the strongest enemy our empire has ever faced." When the invasion begins on February 19th, the beach explodes into chaos. Volcanic ash swallows boots. Mortars rain down like thunder. Yet through it all, the Marines rise, advance, and endure. Raising the flag atop Mount Suribachi becomes more than a victory. It becomes a symbol of the unstoppable will of the Marine Corps. Japan's soldiers, who once believed no enemy could match their courage, now speak in hushed tones of the Marines' inhuman determination. To them, these men are not just opponents, they are the embodiment of death itself, wearing helmets marked with the eagle, globe, and anchor. The fear wasn't born of superstition, it was earned through blood, grit, and the unbreakable spirit that defined the Marines in every island they touched. From the jungles of Guadalcanal to the black sands of Iwo Jima, one truth remained. When the Japanese saw the Marines coming, they knew the battle would not end until one side was gone.